Alright, so here comes the second chapter, and the uploading of this second chapter is mainly thanks to Zoe, who supported, she seemed to care more than anyone else. So, here you go. And, yeah. How you guys doing? Alright, so, Odium Undone, Chapter 2. I Want to be Missed. In the office of Dr. Gleb. Third session so far. Taylor leans her head back on the cushion and looks up at the gray textured ceiling, preparing to address her psychiatrist without making eye contact. I think I spend too much time wishing I was the one who would be stricken with some kind of illness, and hoping that, I could be visited. I maybe want to be helpless and cared for. I want to be missed. Taylor's dirty blonde hair falls imperfectly on the shoulder of her violet t-shirt dress. Replies Dr. Pavel Gleb. His thoughts are somewhat elsewhere as he involuntarily bounces his right leg rapidly, revealing gray socks, garters, and that his pants were probably purchased secondhand or on some kind of sale because they are clearly too short. Taylor continues, and I really hate how often I tell people how sad and, I guess, weak I feel. I really insist upon my suffering, like I think it's a contest deep down or something, and I cry sometimes in front of people. It's awful. Her voice is natural and soothing, even in its dismay. Replies Dr. Gleb. And, even when I do find myself feeling happy or something, I notice it, and it's like I have to pretend to keep feeling it, like all my emotions are just acted. I feel like I'm only feeling things for the sake of remembering what emotions are like. I feel like an alien or something. Meanwhile, at Scott's, I've got more important things, Mr. Bill says to Thomas. I need to start taking seriously and organizing everything that's become unorderly. Thomas looks at him sadistically and flirts. You've never placed your needs above your wants before. Why start now? Sir Scott, tiring of the disputes of hopeless, ugly cuckoos, begins dozing into an open-mouthed vegetation like a drooling and uninspired thinker. Mr. Bill looks like a Xerox of Waldo from Where's Waldo. Thomas is a more photorealistic-looking person, having cried and laughed. Thomas's all-time favorite comic strip is Winsor McKay's Little Nemo in Slumberland. He once made a non-exhaustive list of the foods which supposedly fueled, according to Nemo's parents and such, Nemo's fantastic dreams, respectively. They are as follows. Raisin cake, peanuts, huckleberry pie, raw onions, ice cream, turkey dressing, donuts, mince pie, cheese, and sardines. Thomas also thinks horses are beautiful. Do you want me to piss on you or not? Thomas offers Mr. Bill, and, like the grinding of guardrails, this jostles Scott awake. Get out of here, you faggots. They start walking away, and still thinking, Bill says something like, I need my independence. Those that pity me for my condition help me into a... And he is too far away to hear anymore. Scott begins to remember 4th grade, and how dreadful it was to be a virgin then. And, as if Scott's life was a static camera angle, 2 more interesting characters walk into shot. Nico steps like someone snug and sturdy rationale and annoyedly bursts out, No, this isn't what I expected, but good luck trying to forecast a decade in the future. Lucian, who just read Nico's fiction but abstained from a dessert of her poetry, turns to her, and his twisting face signifies that he is about to snarl something well said. Meteorology is for the convinced. I live in your dreams and you die in them. Her speechless silence after his coarse voice is like the natural clotting of a nosebleed. Suddenly Scott realizes how intimidated he's always been of his grandmother. Wind blows the chime menagerie on the porch. Heather approaches now and looks up at Lucian and Nico, who've managed to grow on each other before Sunday, and steps into the ring. Nico interrupts herself. Oh my God, Heather, I haven't seen you in years. It had been 8 months. Heather just looks back with irreproachable stillness. Lucian decides to be merciful and not destroy their moment. They hug as if permanently. Lucian checks his phone and then rides off on Heather's Huffy. A typewriter stops. They detach and Nico begins. I've been so worried for you, Heather, after the week it all happened. Heather looks into her eyes for just a second. I was worried you'd be worried. Heather sobs. You could have got yourself killed, Heather. I know. They both simultaneously remember the last conversation they'd had up to that point. It was almost a year ago. Heather hasn't slept, eaten, or spoken with anyone for 3 days now. Scott, who seemingly answers to no one, had unconsciously struck beside the screen door to vent out the plumes of a vintage Starling cigarette he was about to smoke in a breath or two. I'm just glad to see you again, Heather. We're all so damn sick of Lucian. Heather nodded. Just about everyone hated or disliked Lucian. He hated and disliked them more. Heather coughs overdramatically and sneers at Scott. Where'd that jerk go anyway? Which one? Scott blows outward and smoke wraps around Nico and Heather. Oh, Lucy? Scott answers himself. Bet he rode off on your bike. Scott is the kind of person who's validated by people complaining about all the noise they're making. Jerk off, Nico concludes of Lucian in a way that made her sound like an old New York grocer who'd been robbed of an apple or something. Scott hadn't masturbated in hours and so proclaimed self-righteously. It develops in one a tolerance for self-love, eventually making the orgasm about as satisfying as a yawn. The law of diminishing returns. He finishes the cigarette. I might quit here soon. Nico, having secretly enjoyed watching him flick the butt under a metal chair, says, You're too young to quit smoking. Scott smirks as if he was James Dean. Lucian's a block away on the bicycle, remembering how vivid a dream he once had was. Falling slowly, drowning, less slowly, slipping into an ever-darkening pool as a hand futilely stretches out above the water. Meanwhile, back inside Scott's house, yet another idle kid. He's not intentionally passive, though. It's more that he's in between movements, which isn't to say he doesn't have those days. Those days when you talk to almost no one and don't leave the house, when you don't have any obligations and just lazily remain unaccounted for, those are awful. Named Christopher, who'd been asleep on the wood floor behind the larger of the two sofas, was awoken by a text that said simply, Drugs? Chris replies, HMU. And Scott? Soon Sir Scott would receive a text asking, Drugs? Winston barks. Winston is a Burmese mountain dog that lives in Scott's kitchen. Back outside. A girl with very small glasses named Betty just parked in the driveway. It is known only through passing whispers recalling ancient lore that Betty does indeed have a neck. It's never actually been seen. Betty's very small glasses are also difficult to see with the unaided eye. She's talking competitively to Catherine in the passenger seat. They sit in the heated minivan and finish their unfriendly debate about sexuality. Scott is on the porch, busy contemplating the isolating nature of individuality. Scott is on the porch, busy contemplating the isolating nature of individuality. Once wholly self-actualized. His phone is inside on the living room table as it buzzes. Chris crawls up and looks at it as if it were a very small fire. Lucian, a few streets down by now, almost wonders whether it was right for him to steal Heather's bicycle. He takes out his cell phone. Back on the porch, Nico dumbly says, Cantaloupe. She holds her phone up to her ear. Lucian. Scott snaps out of leaning and pushes Heather aside to point past her down the street. Oh my God, look down there, it's a Lamborghini! Lucian on the phone with Nico must have asked her what Scott was yelling about. Some car, her answer. Back inside. Chris begins remembering a dream he had. This was it. A chihuahua-sized white pony, which was actually a unicorn, he suddenly recalls, was hopping around his parents' house. They all thought it was fake. A remote-controlled unicorn, probably built by Christopher. He insisted it was real, as its horn bent forward and ejaculated an electric blue explosion into the room. He frantically tried to catch the creature, but as soon as it was touched by human hands, it became dried clay and shattered into many small pieces. What would Freud say? More about Christ after this message from our sponsor. Hi. I don't always tell time, but when I do tell time, I prefer to use the Casio F91W chronograph. The Casio F91W chronograph is the best wristwatch on the market. It has everything you need, from a strap, this little thing that catches the other side of the strap once you've clicked it onto the little buckle. It has words on it, and most importantly, it has time. Now, what is time? It's just a human construct built around agriculture or something, but, sometimes time comes in handy. Casio. And now more about Christ. Christ's family were the kind of people who travel. Apparently they still are. The kind of happy, shiny, high on Jesus Christians who just might break out into song at any time to exorcise some demons in their perfect little healthy choir-like voices. The family who pays $65 at an amusement park for an antique photo of everyone in Western garb. Christ wore the coonskin cap. He had realized very early on in life that he did not fit into this superb portrait. He spends most of his time on Mare Tranquillitatis. Tranquillitatis. It's like an ocean on the moon. You look that up. It's pretty cool. On the porch. Damn, a Lambo. Scott languidly restates under his breath. The time. But also the chronos! Ha ha! Now, the Casio F91W comes equipped with several features. One of them is the strap. And that's this dark portion here. Now, the Casio F91W isn't just any ordinary Casio F91W model wristwatch / chronograph. Now this is actually made of pure gold.